how it's shaved and shaped up and stuff like that. My mom does that too, because she doesn't like the hair that grows down there either. I'm like, look at the middle. Like, look at that. Come on now. Look at that. Clearly the braids, the ones that are shorter, were meant to flow into the other ones. Like, I can see that was the idea, you know, but it's like, it's digital, so we give you a break. And it's like, look. These, for this to all be even, the braid, that's why it stops like that, it's folded up. It's folded up into the hairstyle. My mom was like, they don't know nothing about that. They for sure got African American. And I was like, right, that's what makes it so cool. Because they actually, because respectfully, if you want to do a game or create any story, and you're like, I want this person to be Arabian, or I want them to be Egyptian, or I want them to be Brazilian, that's 100% fine. There's no issue with that. But you have to go do research. And if you're like, even with all my research, I don't feel like I'm qualified enough, by all means, reach out to a person that is actually that ethnicity, or a part of that culture, or a part of that religion, whatever it may be, a part of that community, and seek help. Seek wisdom. You need the knowledge. You need it. You know what I'm saying? So if you're like, we want to create more African American styles, don't feel like you have to wait until you're a level 10 in your knowledge. That may take years, or you may never get there, because there are certain nuances that are associated with every culture, with every community. So, like, let's use an example of the deaf community, right? Rocky, I'm not deaf, but I am learning ASL. But I'm aware that when I sign the way that I speak English. I sign every word. That's the difference between someone that's learned ASL and speaks ASL, or signs ASL, if you will, and someone that was raised in the deaf community, someone that's a part of that, someone that's actually a part of the deaf culture. Because they don't sign every single word. They like start with a pronoun and or end with a pronoun. They don't sign every single word, every single word. And sometimes they'll look at you very silly, because they're like, what are you saying? Because of the way that you're signing it. You know, you're signing like it's English as if it's not its own language. Which is why people say this gets lost in translation, because every language, most languages aren't equal like that. You can't say one thing in English and say it the exact same way in German. It changes because of phonics, grammar, and nuance. And learning nuance is what makes you truly fluent in a language. You know, that's why you can speak English and still miss expressions, or still be confused because they said something, but if you took them at their face value, you'd be confused because they're not saying it at face value. They don't mean it at face value. There's an intended meaning that has nothing to do with the words they actually use. Sorry about that. That's somebody knocked at the door. Okay, and so that being said, I'm like incredibly proud of how they did the African American hairstyles. You know, the textured hairstyles, if you will. Honestly, that's what they are. Not African American, they're textured, because Africans have this texture as well. You know, so the textured hairstyles, and so yeah, that's the difference. And it's like, in terms of being creative, sometimes the story or what you want to build calls for something that you don't know. You know, even if you wanted someone to have, you want to write about a doctor, but you want to write about their life as well, so what they struggle with. But you're not a doctor. You don't have doctor friends. You don't know much about what a doctor's life looks like. You have to go do research. You have to put your foot to the pavement. You know, that's just what comes with being a creator. You know, that's just what it is. You are always seeking to learn, to understand. It's important if you want to do it justice, anyways. You want to be a cheap knockoff, you know, do whatever you want to do. Just, you'll be a cheap knockoff. But if you want something that's worth respecting, worth remembering, worth building a legacy around, you gotta do the hard work. So yeah, added this gold, ate that down, and I love this outfit because the focus was really gold. And oh, the makeup comes with the wizarding game pack, the magician game pack. I like to use it just because it adds just a bit more of a flair to the face, for sure. And look, I did his necklace. That was on purpose, because in my mind, I'm marrying into his family. I'm marrying into his legacy. This was the 5th one. This was like my actual wedding dress. This is not a dress I really care for. Now that I'm looking at it, I can put my finger on why. It kind of looks like a fish to me. I'm not crazy about the sleeves. I think I know what they were going for, like that puffiness at the top, but it started too low. If the top of the dress came up higher and this was a bit more off the shoulder and looked a bit more feathered out, I think it would have been better, you know, but this just, Or maybe they were going for the fish thing. I don't know, but this wasn't really my bag. These bracelets are from the wedding pack as well. They're like the bangles that you'd wear at, correct me if I'm wrong, but an Indian wedding is called a sari, isn't it? No, a sari is, I think that's a accessory. Is it? No, I think it's a ceremony. I don't know. A sari is a garment, I think. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to pull from my memory of this because I learned it, but hey, there's a lot of wisdom up here in my head. I loved when Cheetah Girls 3 when I was a kid did Bollywood. Though, I mean, when I watched it, I was like, oh my goodness, Raven would have looked so great in all those outfits, and I missed her vocals and things like that. But they did it really well still. They did it really well still. And the looks were really amazing. And I met so many Indian actors in that movie that I got to see throughout my life still and be like, oh my goodness, I know you. I've seen you before. And that was great. And that's how I learned about Bollywood. Like if there wasn't Cheetah Girls 3, it would have been years before I learned about Bollywood. You know, that's how I learned that Bollywood is India's Hollywood. You know, that's how I learned about how they revere elephants. That's what made me revere elephants because they taught us not just, oh, we respect elephants, but then they explained why. You know, about how elephants see us and how wise they are, and they could tell a judge of character. And you know, you can sometimes feel like the universe shift when you look into their eyes, that they're beautiful creatures. And then many years later, we had the Legend of Tarzan, where the live action, which if you guys haven't seen it, it's a pretty great film. Samuel L. Jackson is in it, and I did not know that. When I tell you, I'm watching it, and I watched like the little preview first. It was on Netflix like 8 years ago, I think. And it's Alexander Skarsgård. I have no other reference to give you guys if you guys aren't sure which brother that is. Not the Pennywise brother and not Gustav either. Alexander is the one that was in True Bloods. That's Alexander. So Alexander is Tarzan. And I love Tarzan. Tarzan is a great film. It has a great soundtrack. Has always had a great soundtrack. Soundtrack is everything. The music was amazing because it was emotional and it was real and it had depth. It was amazing. And Tarzan himself, he's great. And Love Jane and all that stuff is a great movie. I love the way it was drawn. It was so beautiful. The way they illustrated it, like even the way the gun looked, it was just amazing. And Tarzan is incredibly beautiful. Period. He's one of the most beautiful Disney princes. Yes, I called him a Disney prince, and what of it? He is one of the most beautiful Disney princes ever. Love him down. So when they're like, oh, we did a live action, here's Alexander Skarsgård, blase, blase, blase. Oh, hi, Luna. I just now saw your chat. Just now. Hi, Luna. I hope you're having a great. Your name is beautiful. That's a beautiful name. I popped out of my game to come see your chat. I'm on one monitor, so the only thing on my screen is technically Sims. So most streamers, they'll use two monitors, so one has their game because nothing pops up on your game screen, nothing. And then on the second monitor they'll have the other windows that we have up when you're streaming, the streaming app itself, maybe even Twitch to manage the stream and things like that. So that's where they'll see the chat on the second monitor. I'm not currently using the other monitors for specific reasons, so I'm on one monitor, so there's no way for me to actually see it. I have to just pop in and out of the game and check the app on my one computer, which is not a problem. But when someone messages me or chats to me and say if they did it in a certain time frame and then I didn't pop out until 30 minutes later, they might be gone, you know, because they think that I didn't answer them or that I'm ignoring them. And it's just, unfortunately, I have no way of being notified about your message, unfortunately. But thank you for helping. I'm having a great day. I hope you're having a great day too. I hope you're still here. If you're not here, then I'll just message you later, which is what I've just been doing, messaging people later and responding and letting them know. So, but your name is Luna, and I think that's really, really pretty. I think Luna is a really pretty name. I forget where I left off in my little story time. What was I saying? Bollywood. I was at Bollywood. Tarzan. Yes, Tarzan. Yes. So when they said Alexander Skarsgård was playing Tarzan, I was like, I really don't think that there are many animated films that could be turned into live actions because, respectfully, I don't think the human beings that exist can mirror them properly. And the ones that can't are probably unknown. They're probably not mainstream actors and actresses. They may not even be thespians at all, and most of them are probably first time thespians, newbies. And for some reason, in this day and age, the studios aren't looking for thespians that aren't well known, that aren't going to innately, they're just looking for money. And you know what brings money? Viewership. And you know who people come to view? Actors and actresses that they've watched for years and that they know. So in their mind, that's what they're focused on. Going with someone that's unknown is risky because now they have to write it well. Now it has to be directed well. Now it has to be composed well. Like now you actually have to show up. You get to be kind of lazy and relaxed when you can just bring in a well-known actors and well-known actresses. You don't have to try as hard. It doesn't take as much thought because whether it's bad or good, people are biased. They're not really looking at it for that. They're looking at it from a standpoint of, oh my goodness, this is Margot Robbie. I love Margot Robbie. And even if they're judging it, they'll probably judge it more harshly because they know Margot Robbie. So it's impossible to be impartial. So when they decided that they were going to go, that it was Skarsgård that was going to be Tarzan, I was like, I don't see the vision. But I was like, I'm always looking to learn. So I was like, okay, saw the preview, and I was like, I want to see this. I'm going to see this. I'm going to see this as a person that knows Tarzan. So I'm going to see if he can live up to it. Because in my mind, I was like, okay, for one, he doesn't look like Tarzan. But let's see if you can act like Tarzan. You don't look like him, but maybe you can embody who he is, which is still great. That's still great. So watching it, Tarzan, who doesn't go by Tarzan in the movie anymore, like by name, he walks into a room and I hear a voice and I'm like, is that Sam? And they turn and it's Samuel L. Jackson. And I had to pause the movie because I was cracking up. The way I'm laughing right now because it's the funniest thing to me because it was the first moment that I had realized, yo, Sam is really in everything. He pops up in everything because it's too funny because I'm watching this preview and Sam is in, I'm thinking like maybe his role is so small. He is in over 75% of the movie and he's not in the previews. So I had no idea he was in this film. So when they turn and he's on the couch and he goes to speak, I am cracking up. I am on the floor. I was like, yo, what is Sam doing here? Like we're in old England in a room full of Caucasian older men arguing about what were they arguing about? They were arguing about where to put money to look for something or another per usual. So that's what the conversation is. So Sam seems so out of place. And so I'm like, who is he in this story? I think he was a professor, activist kind of a person, He was I don't know if they called them politicians then, but he was a man of parliament at the time, if I'm not wrong. Something like that. It was just too funny. But Skarsgård did amazing. He really did. When he knelt down and he showed how his knuckles flex and how they move and that they move differently because he got around on all fours. And when we saw him climbing trees and interacting with lions and functioning in the jungle and his accent, it was just he really did a really great job. He did a great job. I really feel like he brought Tarzan to life in a real way because it wasn't the Legend of Tarzan, the movie, the live action. It's not a rewatch. It's not a redepiction of Tarzan, and it's not a redo of Tarzan. This is Tarzan afterwards, after he met Jane. Some years later, when he realized who his parents were, as he grew up to be an adult man instead of just like a young man. Because I don't know how old Tarzan is supposed to be. I assume maybe at most 22, 24. This is supposed to be him older now, like maybe in his 30s, and what his life would look like. Did he ever go home? So now is that Tarzan. Now he's matured, he's older, which I feel like was a great way to continue the story. I do. And we see him go back and we see him interact with the jungle and we see real jungle animals. Now, I say that loosely they're real in the movie. I don't know